Fellas, with the title fights that we've got up and coming in the UFC, there's obviously everyone's predictions, what they think is going to happen and what we overall just predict is going to happen in these title fights. But assuming that I was like some sort of genie and I controlled the outcome of every fight, what would my preferred outcome be for every single title fight? So if I had full control of how the fight ended, who won, who would I give the win to, and how would I give them the win? So I'm going to be going through every single title fight, and I know every title fight hasn't actually been announced. Some of them are near enough confirmed, and then other ones I'm just going to have to assume who's going to be next. But yeah, I'm going to be trying to say my preferred outcome. So if I had to control the outcome of every up-and-coming title, well, not every up-and-coming, every single title fight that's next in the UFC, what would I choose? Let me know what you would pick. Starting off with Jon Jones versus Stipe in the heavyweight division. Yeah, this is the fight that's ruining heavyweight. This is the fight that kind of sets the UFC back. But I feel like my preferred outcome would be Stipe Miocic knocking Jon Jones out. I mean, we all think that Jones is going to go out there, make easy work of Stipe, call it a legacy fight, and then duck the big threat in Tom Aspinall. So what if Stipe was the threat? What if Stipe goes out there, shocks the world, knocks out Jon Jones, makes him regret not fighting Aspinall, and Stipe, after this long layoff, after he's just been knocked out in 2021, goes in there and knocks out arguably the greatest of all time and wins the heavyweight belt once more? Stipe saves Jon Jones from ending, coming off with this legacy fight. Because let's be honest, Jon Jones doesn't deserve to have a nice legacy fight. I know he's got this great legacy behind him, but you're the champion. If you want to do legacy fights, get rid of the belt. So my preferred outcome for that fight, Stipe Miocic in the first round hits Jones with a big shot, follows up with ground and pound, and finishes Jon Jones right there and then, and gets one of the biggest upsets in UFC history. That would be my preferred outcome. I mean, I would prefer to see Aspinall versus Jones, if I'm being honest. I prefer Aspinall to be the guy knocking out Jones, but if we're being realistic, that's the fight that's going to happen next. So the next best thing we can do is Stipe knocking out Jones. Light heavyweight division, Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. Now, I don't know if this is actually going to be next, because apparently Ankalaev's not ready to fight and he wants to call, he wants to be the one to call the shots. And apparently it might be Yuri Prochazka versus Pereira too. But assuming that it is Ankalaev next, because we've obviously already seen Pereira versus Yuri, my outcome would be Alex Pereira to win, and I think the best way for Pereira to win in this fight, if I had control of the full outcome, would be for him to submit Magomed Ankalaev by guillotine. We've seen that Pereira's takedown defense is quite, it's a bit dodgy. Whenever someone goes for a double leg takedown, gets him against the cage, he kind of just goes into a guillotine. But what if he was to submit, first of all, a Dagestani fighter? Imagine Alex Pereira submitted a Dagestani fighter. One of the best wrestlers in the light heavyweight division, Ankalaev. People say Pereira can't wrestle, this and that. So if Pereira was to go out there and submit, not anyone, but Magomed Ankalaev, while Ankalaev goes for a takedown against the cage, that'd be wonderful, right? And even though Pereira getting another knockout on his highlight reel would be great, we've seen it so many times now. I want Pereira to get a submission. I want him to earn that black belt status that he got from knocking out Jamal Hill. So for Alex Pereira, my preferred outcome for him versus Ankalaev would be for Ankalaev to shoot a takedown, get Pereira against the cage, and then for Pereira to get that guillotine, it to be tight, and then Magomed Ankalaev taps in. All those Ankalaev fans and the Dagestani, meat riders, that always like to bring up old fights where someone tapped to a Dagestani, I want to see what they have to say about this fight. So I want Pereira to submit Magomed Ankalaev. Even though knocking him out would be cool, I think a submission from Alex Pereira, especially against Ankalaev, would probably be my most preferred outcome. And then we have the middleweight division. It's been rumored that UFC 305 is going to be Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be next, considering nearly every single middleweight contender is now taken up. So if I had full control of Dricus du Plessis versus Adesanya, I would make it a back-and-forth war. I don't want it to be a boring fight. I don't want it to be Israel Adesanya winning by, just leg-kicking Dricus. I don't want Dricus du Plessis to nearly die in there by just holding Adesanya against the cage and just trying to shoot takedowns. I want it to be a back-and-forth war. A fun fight, an absolute war for UFC 305. Adesanya just destroying Dricus on the feet. Dricus getting the big shots on Adesanya, mixing it up with his grappling, just making it a real tough fight. And if I had to pick the winner, I'd pick Israel Adesanya to win. I know a lot of people hate Adesanya, and they're kind of glad that the Adesanya title reign is over. But listen, I feel like recently the middleweight division has kind of become dead with Dricus as champ. Like, who is actually talking about Dricus du Plessis in 2024? Like, I feel like when Adesanya was champ, even though he was hated, people talked about him a lot. Whereas with Dricus, I don't see anyone talking about Dricus. I want Adesanya to be the champion again. And then, after the fight, I want him to have a face-off with Sean Strickland. Strickland versus Adesanya too. Strickland just, comes up behind Adesanya, They have a face-off for their next fight, or maybe if Costa wins, it could be Costa, but I don't really have interest in that fight. Or maybe Chimaev. If Chimaev beats Whittaker, Adesanya and Chimaev have a face-off, because I'd much rather see Adesanya versus Chimaev and Adesanya versus Strickland 2 than Dricus versus Strickland 2 or Dricus versus Chimaev. That's just my personal opinion, so I would make this fight an absolute war, with Adesanya winning the decision and then having a face-off with someone like Strickland or Chimaev. Welterweight division, Leon versus Bilal. I'm pretty sure everyone's expectations for this fight are low, so it's going to be hard to not make this fight. Well, it's going to be hard to make the expectations even lower. So for this fight, first of all, obviously I want it to be a fun fight, but I would want Leon Edwards to perform a Marlon Vera versus Sean O'Malley 2 type performance on Bilal Muhammad. I want Leon Edwards to piece up Bilal Muhammad for 5 rounds straight. And the only difference between that and the Marlon Vera fight is I don't think Bilal Muhammad's going to be getting a big body shot on Leon Edwards. I want Leon Edwards to do a masterclass. A lot of people still have a lot of questions when it comes to Leon Edwards. They know that he's well-rounded, but they call him boring. So I want Leon Edwards to showcase his striking and use Bilal Muhammad as a punching bag. I don't hate Bilal Muhammad, but we need to keep him as far away from that belt as possible. So if Leon Edwards can go out there, put an absolute masterclass, absolutely destroying Bilal Muhammad, destroying his legs, rearranging his face, all of that, that's going to keep Bilal Muhammad away from the belt for the longest time. It's going to be a satisfying performance. And for the main or co-main event of UFC 304, that would be such a good performance for Leon Edwards just to go out there and absolutely outclass Bilal Muhammad. Bilal Muhammad tries initiating the takedowns, doesn't work, eat a knee, mate. This fight hasn't actually been confirmed yet, by the way, but I'm assuming it is next, considering there's no one else for Leon. And apparently Shafkat versus JDM is going to be at UFC 305. But for Leon versus Bilal, I want a Leon Edwards masterclass. And then for the lightweight division, Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier. This will be the next title fight at UFC 302. I want the first round, and hear me out. You're gonna get mad after this, but the first round, right? Specifically the first round, I want Islam Makhachev to maul Dustin Poirier, right? Let me explain. I want Islam Makhachev to take Poirier down, beat him with ground and pound, make Poirier look like he shouldn't have been in there with him. And I want everyone to be mad. You know, Poirier had no business being in there with him. So I want Islam Makhachev to dominantly win the first round. Everyone's got confidence that Islam's going to finish him in the second or the third. Second round, Islam's doing all right on the feet, goes for a double leg takedown, and then Dustin Poirier does what he does best and jumps the gilly. Similar to Pereira Ankalaev, I want Dustin Poirier to jump the gilly and submit Islam Makhachev. We just talked about Ankalaev tapping and what that would do to the Dagestani fans. Imagine what the Makhachev and the Khabib fans would feel like if Dustin Poirier was to submit Islam Makhachev. That would be crazy. So I want Dustin Poirier to not only get one of the biggest upsets in UFC history, not only be the second ever guy to beat Islam Makhachev, but to win the undisputed belt by submitting Islam Makhachev. I think that would be historical. So, listen, I don't even mind Makhachev as a champ. It's not like I want Makhachev to lose. It's that I want Poirier to win the belt. So I want Poirier to jump the gilly and win that undisputed belt by submitting Islam Makhachev. That would be my preferred outcome for that fight. The featherweight division. I'm hoping it's going to be Poirier versus Holloway next. We've got no confirmations of what's going to be next in the featherweight division, but I'm assuming it's going to be Poirier versus Holloway. I want Max Holloway to put on a Calvin Kattar performance. I want Max Holloway to be taunting Ili Topuria in there. And listen, I don't hate Topuria. I think he's a fairly fun fighter, but the way that he's, treating the featherweight division, refusing and ducking fights, and just overall his antics surrounding MMA, I think Topuria needs a fight where he can get humbled a little bit. He's never lost before, and I hope he stays at the top of the featherweight division because we need more characters like him, but I want Max Holloway to just outbox Ili Topuria for 5 rounds. There's a lot of questions of who's the better boxer. I want Holloway to go out there, mock Topuria, embarrass Topuria on the feet, and I want Holloway to make Topuria look like he's an amateur. That's my preferred outcome for that fight. I think it's going to be a fun fight regardless. I think this is one of the funnest title fights you can make, but if Holloway can go out there and do a Calvin Kattar performance part 2, that would be amazing. Then for the bantamweight division, pretty sure it's going to be Sean O'Malley versus Merab next. Again, they don't have a date, but it seems like this is going to be next. For Sean O'Malley versus Merab, I want this to be a back-and-forth fight similar to Dricus. I want this fight to be a perfect showcase, one of the best showcases in UFC history of striking and grappling. I want Sean O'Malley to absolutely destroy Merab on the feet, land the better shots, tag Merab multiple times. I want Sean O'Malley to make Merab look like he had no business being in there with him on the feet. And then I want Merab to go out there and absolutely ragdoll Sean O'Malley when it comes to grappling. Gets nearly every takedown, pushes a grappling pace, slams him, ragdolls him, beats him with ground and pound. And I want that to be the pace for 5 rounds straight. I don't just want it to be Sean O'Malley beating Merab on the feet. I don't want it to just be Merab beating Sean O'Malley with grappling. I want it to be the perfect showcase of MMA. A perfect mix of striking striking and grappling between Merab and Sean O'Malley, and that would be my preferred outcome for that fight. The winner, I'd probably want Sean O'Malley to get the decision win. I don't mind Merab, I don't mind O'Malley, but I feel like if we're talking about excitement for future title fights, I think O'Malley would probably have a little bit more excitement than Merab, considering he's one of the funnest fighters in the UFC. But I want it to be back and forth, perfect showcase of grappling and striking, but I would like the win to go to Sean O'Malley by decision. And then finally, the flyweight division again. This is the hardest one because there isn't actually a fight. It seems like the number one contender fight is going to be Makayev versus Manel Kape at UFC 304. So assuming that Makayev wins that fight and we have Pantoja versus Makayev, I just want Pantoja to knock out Makayev, man. It would be good to see another fighter from the UK region in Makayev win a belt. But I feel like if Makayev was ever going to win a belt, I'd want him to do it when he was, had chance to be the youngest champion in UFC history. That's gone now. I just want Pantoja to knock out Makayev. I don't mind Makayev. I think he's a fairly nice guy, but the guy's been talking too much, man. And again, similar to Topuria, I think this guy needs a humbling. He's very young, and I would want Pantoja to just knock out Makayev. I don't care how he does it. As long as Makayev's knocked out and Pantoja's the winner, I'm a happy man. And then maybe we can see Makayev get a little bit more humble, improve his striking game, and maybe get a title shot in the future. But that would be my preferred outcome for every single title fight in the UFC. Let me know what your preferred outcome would be. And if you think these fights, if they perform the way I just said they would be bangers. So let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching.